I've been wanting to do some videos for a long time about the challenges that people face when they come into the gym. And one of them is exercise selection, or perhaps how we go about, choosing different exercises. And what happens with a lot of people is our examples come from bodybuilders, or a lot of people with much larger muscles than the average person may have. And that average person then wants to mimic what they see with a bodybuilder. So a lot of times what isn't taken into account when we're watching bodybuilders is the sheer size and volume of their muscles. Because their muscles are so much bigger, they have less space between the muscles or movements to contend with, thus giving them a greater rate or ability to contract the muscle. As more average sized people or smaller people, we don't have that advantage. So what I wanted to do was just maybe show one exercise today where a bodybuilder will have a major advantage of contraction over someone who's average size, and how the average sized person can make up for the fact that their muscles aren't as large or take up as much space, thus needing less space to contract. So let's look at a dumbbell fly, and we'll break that down a little. So I don't really need weights to give you the example of what's happening. So we have our bench, and it's in a position that one might normally use for a dumbbell chest fly. Now a bodybuilder, because a lot of times they have large pectoral muscles, they are able to get a contraction almost all the way through, right? So their muscles connect closer to the center part of their chest, their sternum, and they get this great contraction all the way through. Average, smaller muscle people, we don't have that advantage. We have to look for where in the range of motion, where in this space that my arms are moving, where the contraction takes place. So we want to really notice that on a fly, this contraction is probably coming from just here to right in that point where the hand is vertical over the shoulder. With a bodybuilder, it's much different. They're probably going to get that contraction all the way through up to the top. Another thing I like to do with smaller or average muscle people is to give them a rest pause in a lot of these exercises. In other words, I come to the bottom, I support the weight, I pause, I do a small contraction before I lift. It actually promotes a lot of safety and movement. So for example, if I'm opening, I pause, I let the weight sit, press down in my hand at the bottom, and squeeze up to the top. And another one is understanding the chains of muscles involved within the movements. So the more that I have my chest open and out, the less I'm going to be able to connect to the exercise. The more that I can close that rib cage and get those abdominal core muscles involved, the serratus anterior muscle involved, the more I'm going to connect and feel the contraction of the muscle. So when you get on a bench, you can play with different degrees of how you connect here through your rib cage and pelvis. So instead of pushing the chest out and having this open, I can just contract that a little bit, thus activating that chain of muscle, thus getting a better contraction in the chest and doing better work. And when you understand that, you actually have the ability then to just sort of navigate more freely through different weights, play with different styles of movement. So when we tackle these things, think about where it is in the range of motion you're getting the contraction, how best can you position your body to hit your target, and move on from there.